Day 2 of spring practice is in the books. Thank you for checking out my video. I'm David. I talk Buffs, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, everything related to the CU football program. Thanks for tuning in. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's go ahead and start off with Jimmy Horn. This guy has such an infectious personality. He had a press conference yesterday as well as an interview with Mark Johnson. And one of the things that I wanted to point out about him that really come through in these interviews is just his confidence. He firmly believes that he is the fastest man on this team, and I don't doubt him, to be quite honest. Really great to hear him not wanting to turn down any opportunity to get on the field. He was asked if he expected to return kicks or punts, and he was saying how he wants to do everything. So hopefully we get to see a lot of Jimmy Horn on the field in all aspects of the game. It was also great hearing Jimmy talk about the players that he would watch growing up. Really fascinating. He actually focused on a lot of running backs because that's where he played when he was younger, that position, and just really enjoyed a lot of the talent. He said he would watch some of the more old school running backs like Bo Jackson or Barry Sanders. And then one of the wide receivers that he really likens his game to, which I think is awesome, is Devin Hester, one of the most electric players we've ever seen in all of football. And then you can see in the well-off videos, and I'll link that here in the description just like I did yesterday, the well-off videos, the different interviews and press conferences for you to check out. But, I mean, he was burning guys for touchdowns. Defense seemed like it was having a little bit tougher of a day, but I mean that's to be expected, especially this early. You're learning new coverages. Speaking of defense, we also heard from Charles Kelly for about 10 minutes, and that was great as well. He talked about how he wanted to experiment a little bit with this defense and personnel right now just to see what everybody can do within the secondary specifically. But right now he said the scheme, it's about 90% implementation, 10% experimentation. Now, he was also asked who stands out to him right now in the field, and it's funny because he didn't point at any of the defensive guys, but he went straight to the quarterback himself, Shedeur Sanders, about how he can really throw it. He really stands out. He really pops on the field. And, I mean, if you go back and watch his Jackson State tape as well, his ball placement is precise. His motion, it doesn't get much more smooth than that. He's got the right mechanics, and you even heard Jimmy Horn talk about that as well in his press conference about how, Shedeur, he's ready for this level of college football. Also listening to the interviews, again, you get this sense that the team practice intensity is still not where it needs to be. It seemed like they had a better day in regards to that with day 2 from day 1, but it still seems like just like you would building any team from scratch, to be quite honest, there's going to be a long ways to go in building this thing. And one thing that I love, I want to talk about it again from yesterday, the honesty and the accountability that these coaches are giving these players, and it seems like these players are starting to give each other when it comes to holding each other accountable for holding the right fundamentals, the right intensity, making sure they're in the right play, making the right reads, all of that. That's so encouraging to see. Now, also in the well-off videos, again, please go check this out. You can see some of the coaches, when it comes to holding players accountable, you see that. So with Tim Brewster, there's some throwing drills done with the tight ends. You see a tight end drop a ball, and he says, you know what, just keep running. Just keep running around the track. That kind of accountability, love to see that. You saw that Coach Prime was even getting in on the whole defense in terms of the coverages not up to standard where they wanted. And one particular interesting piece of feedback that or challenge that he gave the defense was for the linebackers to step up and lead. Now, if you've listened to any of my previous videos, linebacker is one of those groups right now where I don't really feel like there's any clear-cut leaders of that group right now. It's one of the more uncertain groups with kind of who's going to rise to the top and be those main players in that position group. So I thought that was just interesting that was that particular group was being pointed out in that video. Now, speaking of defense, that also reminds me of Travis Hunter. Another thing that Charles Kelly hit on in his press conference was that he's not too worried about Travis right now, not focusing on the defensive side, focusing on wide receiver. And he brought up that actually at Alabama, they would run Devonta Smith in the secondary drills as well in practice. And he saw a lot of work in the secondary, which I had no idea. But when you're talking about one of the greatest college wide receivers of all time, you could argue, I mean, now you can kind of put the pieces together and it makes sense about like why he's such a good wide receiver. He understands ball on both sides of the field, and that's encouraging to hear when it comes to Travis Hunter as well. The last thing I'll hit on is that Coach Prime had a speech to the team about instilling fight and intensity, and I love that he's doing that from this early on. Again, if we're wanting to build something that's going to compete for Pac-12 championships, this is the kind of mentality and the kind of things that we need to be focusing on this early out, because it's all going to build up and translate over into the regular season. So thank you for checking out my video. If you like what I'm doing, putting out daily Buffs content, would appreciate you joining us in our journey to 1,000 subscribers. Hit that like, give me a Sco Buffs in the comment, and Sco Buffs.